What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Jay's Table. We got a switching up this week. We've been ranking up and lining up the movies, and so now we're switching up, doing a little change of pace, and we're focused on a little bit of current events going on right now. So we're switching to a little bit about what's going on politically, different states, stuff like that, and also just want to give you guys a heads up about things that are happening right now around us, whether you know it or not.
Yeah. We want to kind of talk about, in particular, um, map districting in your state, and maybe not your particular state, but one case that comes to mind is Alabama to me. Supreme Court earlier this year, ordered them to draw a new map because they had two majority minority districts, so mostly people of color, right? So they submitted a redistricting map that only had one minority district, which means they did something with those votes. They either put them in one district or they spread them out, which kind of weakens the I'm going to say the black vote, but I mean like people of color vote in that community, because I think Alabama's 27% African American, so that
Crazy.
is important. I know, right? So that's an important thing to bring up. They resubmitted the map that they were supposed to submit to the Supreme Court to their district and made no changes. They submitted the exact same map. Listen to me, the exact same map to the Supreme Court. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, is what it is.
So they essentially said no to the Supreme Court, pretty much what they said.
What you can't do,
Very,
right? It's
a
not like
very
that.
Alabama, Mississippi, dirty South thing. Only they have the goal to do that, you know.
Yeah, you can't just ignore the Supreme Court. So obviously it was I think they were stricken down with a 4-5 vote. With obviously the recent events, that's a big deal. Like they just overturned Roe v. Wade. We have a conservative leaning court right now. So you know how bad your map has to be for them to strike it down. It got to be pretty bad.
They said we can't do it like that. Like we may slightly agree with you, but you can't just be throwing it out there like that. We have reputations to protect. They map was terrible.
and this is part of my issue with politics as a whole and people, is that oftentimes you vote based on, I know I'm switching up, guys. You vote based on if you like a candidate or not. It doesn't matter if they're attractive. Let me give y'all things that should not matter when you're voting. It does not matter when if they're attractive. It does not matter how tall they are. Their age does not matter to a certain degree, right? That stuff don't matter almost, just cursed. That doesn't matter. Their politics matter, and that's what people need to focus on, especially with this upcoming election. You should be focusing on the politics of the candidates, and all of them, not just the Democratic candidates. And y'all know who I'm talking to. Not just them. You can't just focus on them. You need to pick a candidate based on who you align with and how their politics align with your persons. You don't vote on party lines, which people do. I think Black people in particular vote at like an 80 or 85% clip. We're somewhere in there. We vote democratically without even thinking about other candidates and other parties, because the Republican Party is not the only party. The Democratic Party is not the only party. There are other parties. There's the Greenpeace Party, right? There's an environmental friendly party. Mm-hmm. There are other people who may align with your interest more than your Democratic nominees. So I think we got to start thinking about those things. But overall, people vote on things that aren't important, right? They vote for people on the basis that aren't important for politics, right? You need to read things that bills they've signed or they've gotten passed through Congress and Senate, right? Laws they've helped enact. What did they do for their state, right? Their educational system, where they are.
For how well they do their job, not for
perfectly. You said that perfectly. It's about how well they do their job. You don't go to the doctor and be like, he's not attractive. I don't want him treating me. Does it make sense? No.
Well, people probably do.
Actually, that's a good point. Which is a problem. And it's so sad that politics is based in that, and relationships. It needs to be based strictly on politics, right? Politics, people. Not all the other crap. Okay? So that I'll get off my soapbox on it though. I don't want to bore you guys. I can do this all day. I can.
Maybe they wanted to vote for them because they said I would like to have a drink with that person. I think he's a great person to have a drink with. And
That's exactly why they voted for Bill Clinton. Well, not exactly why, but they did a poll. I remember they did a poll like, would you have a beer or would you like sit down with Bill Clinton? Most people said yes, Republican or Democrat. That it was a direct correlation to the number of people he got out to vote. It's ridiculous. That does not matter. And y'all voted for Bill Clinton, and then he put more black people in jail than any other president before him since. So obviously, you didn't look at his politics, right? He was on the floor to pass one of the strictest bills ever passed when it comes to mass incarceration of people of color. He signed that bill. So did Hillary. They both signed that bill, right? Like you need to think about those things. Not if he can play the saxophone, because we don't care if he can play the saxophone when he's running the country. What does that have to do with him running the country? He's not a saxophonist. He's a president.
We mean people like to have good things on their ears when they got to see him every day. That's
right. You better put some music on, put some headphones in, but you can't be voting. This your vote.
You can't expect Entertainment America
that's a good point.
To do things logically all the time.
That's a good. But it hurts the masses. All right. It hurts the most people, no matter their creed, right? No matter their color. When you're voting like that, when you are voting in a way that is subjective, it's ridiculous. That does not help sustain an economy. And then you don't get to complain about their politics when you didn't look at them before you voted for them. Shut your ass up. You just gotta take that L. And it's interesting how we'll come back. I think people are like, and me and you in our generation, look at Bill Clinton a little differently than our parents did, right? Because we saw the effects of these bills that he passed, but he was on the Senate floor preaching for these bills then. He was on the House floor backing these bills in the 90s.
I feel like nobody really pays attention to including myself included, until a little bit lately, just because Trump came in there and just blew up everything.
You also, me, everything.
In the words of Cat Williams, pimping y'all.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
That's a plug. Oh, that's funny.
But it's like you don't think about like I honestly, if you ask the average person, I doubt they can give you the name of more than one or two senators.
Okay, I'd agree with that. I think most people couldn't give you, especially your senators and congressmen, because sometimes they're selected based on representation, right? So if California had I don't know how many people in Congress, a lot, because it's a big state.
Many.
Right. While Wyoming don't got that many.
Right.
It's proportional to obviously they give us the big states more power in that particular branch of government, but you also got the 1v1 votes in the other house. So it kind of balances out. But what it does is it gives neutrality to centralized governmental power. Obviously, a lot of people don't want central power, but except Bernie Sanders. But he's a proponent of a strong central government for the fact that it's easier to pass legislation that way.
Yeah, because people can't be trusted. Apparently, that's what it said. I don't blame them. Sometimes these people be. Even though dictatorship would be absolutely terrible, sometimes they'll be like, I mean, honestly, I ain't gonna lie.
I think we think a dictatorship would be terrible because we're Americans, and I say that in quotation marks because we don't really feel like Americans, quote unquote, but we are by birth, and we've been living in a democracy for our whole lives, right? And our whole lives they've preached, hey, democracy is good, oligarchy is bad, right?
Right.
And they both have their ups and downs. You can't pass a law in a democracy. J. Cole said, democracy was too slow.
It's too slow. Thanks.
But you need those checks and balances to balance power. You don't want to give one person too much power. I guess was the idea. That was the goal. But
the way humans acted over time, I don't trust any one person with power. Humans have a bad reputation. I like to tell you that.
That's a fact. Humans don't. You give anybody too much power, it's going to be
So I don't blame them, but also sometimes it'll be like, look, can we just like the stuff we got going on in Alabama with the redistricting? Like, there should be no way that this is even a discussion, but like somehow it's a discussion. Like,
Well, because each state has their individual rights. I mean, states' rights
right,
is
and that's what they're basing their appeal off of. But it's like no, you can't change the Voting Rights Act that's been there, that's been put in place for a reason. Like, I don't think people understand how hard it is to get major legislation like that to even change. Like, so much has to happen. Like, slavery ended supposedly in 1865. It took literally 100 years on the dot later to just get voting rights. Like, you know how much had to happen. And
then
I literally mean 100. It passed in 1965.
and then
They were
and
supposed
that
to end in 1865.
and on top of that, we said we had Jim Crow at the time. By we, I mean
Right.
my parent, grandparents. We weren't alive, but
Right.
exactly. But part of that is, like you said, democracy is it's slow.
Mhm.
But we can aid a democracy in being faster if our politics align with our persons,
Oh, for
not
sure.
with our personal preference of how somebody looks or how they dress, right? Or if
Right.
they're overweight or not. These are very real things people look at when they're voting for
Oh, very.
office.
Oh, very.
These are very real things. Like, people actually care about somebody's weight. People actually care about how attractive they are. Like, you
Right.
look at the polls, look it up. You can fact check me on that. People actually care about these very. I'm trying to think of a word that's not going to offend y'all, but things that don't matter when it comes to politics, right?
And I mean, I think it's a very common thing, especially among humans that have the luxury of living in a first world country, where
that's a good point.
we have time to even think about, like, do we actually like this person? Like, it's like for people who live in third world countries, they don't like, it's not even a question. It's like, no, this person's straight up wrong and this person's right, so we're voting for the right person. Like, no, like,
Facts.
it's very clear. But as a first world country, we have very much the luxuries to be like, it's like, oh, I don't know if I actually want to hang out with this person. I don't know if I like him, and like actually have time to even consider those facts. And so it's very easy.
That's a good point.
Because at the end of the day, human nature is to go where you're comfortable and pick the decision that you're most comfortable with. And things like appearance, things like personality and stuff are a big part of whether that makes somebody.
Yeah.
That's how you pick your friends. That's how you pick who you hang out around. And so it's
and
like,
that
and
makes
it's
sense, though.
right.
That your point there makes perfect sense when you're picking friends, right?
Exactly.
When you're picking where you want to live, when you're picking things like that, when
Right.
you're picking a president, a senator, a congressman, a alderman, somebody who's supposed to go to government, they're your rep in government to get things passed for you, to get bills passed, bills signed, to fight for your interests in your community. How they look don't matter.
Right.
It just doesn't. It's
No, it
not
doesn't.
something that matters, and it shouldn't.
No.
And I will agree with you. It does, right? Like, I'm obviously of the mind that it shouldn't,
Right.
but it matters.
Right.
And that's the point
I
I'm
mean,
trying to. It shouldn't matter.
right. And I mean, that's the problem. And we do it, and we don't do it in politics. Now, I think a part of the problem is that we don't view politics as seriously as we should, because of also, I mean, we never have in the first place, but Trump, this is why Trump was one of the things that just kind of messed this up. Somebody made a point to me one time that, like, Trump has ruined how somebody in that position is supposed to govern themselves now for the rest of time. Like,
You know,
and it's just like it was so comedic, his presidency, that like it almost made it worse of how much we don't even appreciate how important this stuff is anymore. Like, it's just like now good thing about it is that it woke a lot of people up to how much one person can mess up some stuff, myself included, because I didn't worry about that. I was like, because he got
the president was a glorified diplomat,
that's crazy that he got in there. I was like, that's crazy he got in there, but okay, whatever. There's only so much he can do. Came in there signing everything the first 3 weeks.
Between him and Obama, there's never been more executive orders signed. I don't know this for a fact, guys. I'm just talking. They were signing executive orders galore. Both of them. Obama was in there like, and then Trump was like, "Oh, good idea."
And I knew it was real when Trump was able to change something to the Water Act from 1970. Like, what? Yeah. I was like, we're talking about basic water. Why are we allowing things to be changed about whether our water is fine? Like, what? I was like, that blew my entire mind. I was like, hold on, bro. What? I said, where's everybody else? The all the checks and balances that we was talking about. I said,
He said the
Yeah,
Constitution.
let him do
The
this.
Constitution. He said the Constitution told us we have checks and balances. I don't see nobody checking or balancing nothing.
I'm up there like somebody. I said, who child is this? Who letting them run around like this?
I will say this though. I don't blame Trump holistically for the problem in politics, for it being a celebrity contest, pretty much.
Right.
I don't blame him in particular. Did he run in a way? What he did was, which I think. Also, let me be clear. I'm not calling Trump a genius. I'm not calling him a smart man.
No, we're calling his campaign manager.
His campaign manager should be president. Listen to me. Of all campaign managers, because what he did was mobilize a particular demographic. We always talk about getting people out to vote. Well, Trump did that.
Mm-hmm.
Trump got people out. His campaign. Well, Trump didn't do it, but his campaign manager got people out to vote.
Oh,
you can run a campaign on hate or negative propaganda.
Yep.
And you can do that, and he did it well.
Yep.
He got people. Nobody came out to vote. I can't even. I forget the numbers on who was the Obama election. How many people came out to vote? But like, he got people. Trump got people out to vote. People who weren't voting before.
Yep.
Right? He did it. He did his job. That's what his campaign manager was supposed to do. And I think part of the issue with Trump being in office, I mean, there's 1,000 of them. I could ramble about how he did a bad job, but honestly, I don't know a president that came out of office. You was like, you know what, he did all right. Like most of the time, it's going to be things they can and cannot do. Now, Trump was a different story, obviously. So, but I won't get into them. But there were things Obama couldn't get done, right? There were things happening under his administration that weren't great. Obviously, black people don't want to hear this, but it happens for every president.
Right.
Part of the reason, though, I think presidents can't get things done outside of the democracy being set up to be slow. Like it's just what it is.
Right.
It goes back to the masses, the people, right? The people can't get their ish together, right? I mean, when you're voting for people, if you don't care about the things that are important to you, especially if you're just taking their sound bites on it, right? If you just look at the GOP debate and you just take the sound bites, you're gonna be like, well, these people are crazy. But that's not actually true. Some of them are. Some of them are. Ramaswamy, I don't know if y'all watch the GOP Republican debate. Ramaswamy is out of his mind. He's crazy. He's insane. But you see somebody like Nikki Haley, who is the Republican, she's one of the Republican nominees. She is the most, I don't want to say liberal leaning because I don't want to mess up her campaign numbers. She's the closest to being independent as we have on either side right now. She is the closest to being an independent on either side. She does not back some of these ideas like climate change is not real. She shot that down as a debate, which I'm sure many of y'all watched. But she put a fork in that quickly, right? She's doing some things that's going to help her campaign, and her politics, all in all, aren't awful. And I'm not saying I'm going to vote for her because black people hear another black person talk about a Republican in a good light. Oh dear Lord, burn them in hell, the fire. Doesn't make sense to me, but she has some ideas that I think are pretty solid. Her ideas, especially on climate change, especially on economics in this country, you have to look at, and not just what she said. Go look at her politics. Her politics are directly correlated with what she's saying, right? She is not saying climate change is not real. She's saying we need to fix that, right? Her politics, she's backed bills supporting clean energy, clean air. She's done that. That is stuff you need to look at when you're voting. What bills have they backed? Who do they support? Because that's another thing.
And then like where are those sites that you find those information so that people can go find those things? Because there's a difference, because you just look up something on Google. And I think that's a problem we have now with the internet's good, but also somewhat of a curse sometimes, is that you can Google anything and
people pretty much put
whatever's the most popular thing. Once again, back to what's popular celebrity contest. Whatever's the most popular link is going to be at the top, unless somebody obviously paid money for something else to be at the top.
That's facts.
Out of 10, the people who the actual sources aren't going to pay money to get them.
But you can look at there are a couple of things you can do. So for me, you can literally go on the congressional website or the House website, and you can print out the bills and read them. You can print out the legislation and read them, and it is public knowledge who backed what. You ain't got to sift through secrecy to find it. It is public knowledge of who backed what bill when.
Mm-hmm.
We know Bernie Sanders didn't back the crime bill that was by good old Bill Clinton, that was put forth by Bill Clinton, because we have the records. Actually, I misspoke. He did back the bill, but he backed the bill because it had a lot more restrictions on gun control, and that was his goal. You see how he can explain that? Mm-hmm. It's like people don't care about that. I'm not saying I agree with him, but it makes sense. I at least understand his point. I bet a lot of people don't know that because they just see what Bernie Sanders says on TV and he's a socialist and go bananas from there. But you can look at empirical sites, so sites that are not liberal leaning, which is hard to do, I will say. I think the Washington Post is a really good example of at least they try to be, right? They try to be objective in their research. Pew Research Center is amazing. You can just Google Pew Research and it can come up. That Pew don't play. Their numbers are real. You hear me?
There are a lot of scholarly articles that we had a lot of times that go straight through Pew Research.
Hey man, I don't know. Hey dog, Pew be on it. Dog.
Yeah, they be on. They do their job well.
Well, you hear me? Whoever get paid at Pew Research, they deserve them dollars. You hear me?
Thanks.
Because they're doing that, but we have to do our research.
Oh yeah,
when we're voting.
And it's so hard to find unbiased information, and that's why you really have to, if you want to find some unbiased when it comes to these things, you have to look for it yourself. You're never going to be presented on social media through a reel, through whatever it is, through the debates, through commercial. You're never going to be presented unbiased information. You have to find unbiased information. Because unbiased information does not sell, and so they aren't going to put it out there if it doesn't sell. At the end of the day, everything runs on money. And so if it don't sell, they're not putting it out there.
Also, you can take the information, even if it is biased, and have your own opinion about it. One of my I got a lot of pet peeves, but one of my big pet peeves is when people read an article, especially on politics, and they just assume that's what it is. Like, no, you can make your own conclusion. You can come to your own conclusion on what you took from the article, what you think was like. Obviously, you can't argue with the facts. But there's a lot of subjectivity to what you're doing when it comes to political research. We got to get away from this idea that a candidate is based on all of these things that don't have anything to do with the politics, because it's just not healthy, right? We complain about the Electoral College, but we vote for people who based on things that aren't politics.
Right. Or else there'd be no way that there's that many people willing to like that many people in Alabama who even support the fact of just redistricting a Black community and stuff like that. No way. Like, obviously, like the whole reason even things like racism even still exists is because of things that they just biasly tell them, or people just listening to whoever says it. Like there is, we have proven this time and time again that there's no actual supremacy. There's no supreme race. Like humans are humans at the end of the day. Like just open up yourself if you need to. Like
say cut yourself, get some blood out of there. It's gonna be red.
When he was on the Civil War battlefields, everybody bled the same stuff. It's like the same bullets that was going across the thing was killing everybody.
Now them bullets in the Civil War, they probably weren't killing nobody. You had to stick them with them.
Little circle. That's what it did.
They had them. What did they have them? What did they call them?
Musket balls and stuff.
Can't shoot nobody with that. It's gonna take you 8 minutes.
They all died.
Hold on.
Later.
Yeah, they got infected from being shot. They didn't die from the actual gunshot.
Exactly.
That's not funny, but it's hilarious.
It is what it is. Like, hey, all the good jokes contain truth.
That's what Cold World.
Jermaine Cole, if y'all don't know.
Yeah. If y'all didn't know. So I encourage you guys to watch all of the debates, not just the ones you agree with. And then, go ahead.
And it's so important that we do that as well, because we always get on bigoted people in places like Alabama or in the Dirt South and anywhere, that there's absolutely no way that they should be even having these views and things like that. But at the end of the day, like, and I have sympathy for these people because I grew up in the South and I know how easy, I've seen several people be uninformed about certain things, and like because the education system is not as good down there and things like that. And also it's very even in not just in the South but everywhere, it's very easy to be uninformed. Your information can only come from what you're given exposure to. And
Facts.
so, and especially, and there are certain people in your life, in everybody's life, that you trust more than others. And so 9 times out of 10 your views are going to match their views. Like it's not as hard as people think to give in to racism, given to homophobism, all that other stuff like that. But like
All of the isms.
now it is your duty once you get new information to have the ability to change your mind and understand what is true and state. But at the end of the day, I always have sympathy for people who are bigoted, especially at a younger age, because at the end of the day, they're taught what they're taught. They're exposed to what they're exposed to. Now, these 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds people, we won't get into sometimes, it's like you've gotten a lot of information. You may be time for you to change some of that. I'm just saying, but some people believe in hometown, some people, whatever. At the end of the day,
that goes for all people.
All people.
Ain't just one particular group. Everybody.
Exactly. Because
I think you had a
really good point. For all people. Because it's all people. Like, and just how easy it is for people to get into the bigoted ways of following things like racism. It's just as easy for people to just believe everything about the other side as well, to believe everything that's on TV. Like, you need to do your own research so that you can avoid these things, such as what's happening in Alabama, where a whole district of people was on the verge of disappearing and losing all of their rights that they've had since 1965.
And I'm losing their voting power.
Yes.
And Alabama is obviously super conservative. If you don't know, let me tell you, it's conservative.
Whole Bible Belt. Just look at Bible Belt, and then that's conservative. There it is.
I think you made an excellent point when you talk about when you get new information. That it's your duty to update your thinking. And I think older people, black or white, they don't do that. And I put the burden more on people of color because we need to be doing that. This is why I love Malcolm X, because it didn't take him 70 million years to change a view on something that was clearly not okay. Right? It didn't take him that long you can evolve as many times as you need to. You don't need to stay. You don't stay one person. You don't stay at one thought. You know what you should do. This is what I do. I follow the facts. That's my thing. But everybody's not going to do that. And that's okay. But
and it's very easy to get emotional and lose sight of the facts sometimes too, which is very happening. And like it happens to me, happens to you, happens to everybody. Like, it's okay to have a weak one. That's the thing we also with cancel culture and just the way things have shaken out since George Floyd and everything. Like, it's understandable. Like, yes, we understand you make mistakes. We're not saying that you're a terrible person. Now, some people do. Some people do take it. People are angry, so some people do take it far. Like, okay, also have sympathy for them too. What? They made a mistake too by being so angry. But it's like,
also, I think a part of the other, I got many issues with how politics are seen in America, but I won't bore you guys. But the last thing I want to say on it is the fact that we are voting for these people who in turn are taking different sides to issues for the sake of having a different side to an issue. There's no way coronavirus should have been debatable. And that's just not Republicans. That's Democrats too. But the fact that you guys are going to sit here and debate about stuff that you know is real,
right?
It's ridiculous. This is not a debate. Okay, politics. There's no way some of these things should be debatable. I don't care what political view you have. There are certain things that it should be up in the air, and that onus goes on both parties. And this is why I'll always be an independent, because the onus goes on both of them. Democrats do this too. They take a side because Republicans took another side. Right. You can agree on things.
Yes.
I don't know.
It's the hardest thing apparently to do. I don't know what it is these days.
Especially in politics. They do this in politics where they think, well, if I support this and he's my counterpart or he's my competition, I'm not going to support the bill that he supports.
And I think that's the key right there, that word competition. We're putting competition. We're so used and love competition so much in America that we're now putting competition in places that it shouldn't be a competition. It's
that's
like
facts.
Well, it's like, yes, you're trying to win a race, but at the same time, like, it's not a race. You, at the end of the day, you should all have the same goal. and it should be running a good country where everybody is equal, where everybody is happy, and everybody can afford what they want. Like
and obviously you're not going to please everybody. Nobody's saying that, right? You're going to have people that are just not going to be happy with. But the goal is to appeal to the majority of folks. Right? You want to think about most people. What would most people want, right? Not, oh well, he backed the LGBT community. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Like how is that debate? How is that a debate that y'all having? There's no debate. People are people.
Even in Alabama now, like, why is that? Like, why? Like, the fact that the Supreme Court vote was 5-4 on the matter of whether an entire district of people should lose their voting rights. Like, it's like, why is it 5-4? Like, it should be like everybody. How it should have happened is they should have got that report on their desk that morning, and they should have been like, they said, what? You talking about, was this from the 60s, 70s? No, this is today. Oh, it's today. They said, what? Absolutely not. What is wrong with y'all? Do we agree that yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Don't even we not even gonna hold a meeting. Send it back.
Not gonna hold a meeting. No, I think also you gotta remember the Supreme Court's job though is to interpret the Constitution.
True.
So and obviously gerrymandering votes is pretty much what they were trying to do.
Right.
Is illegal.
Right.
That's not up for debate, like you said. Right. That should not be something. For that reason is why they shouldn't have had a conversation about it. It's clearly against the Constitution.
Like there are certain laws that shouldn't even be allowed to even be touched or even messed with. Like because also as you do this research too, you'll find out that even though the Voting Rights Act is still there and very much in place and holding its power, there are certain sections of it that have been touched in Alabama before. And I think it was Section 5, I think, that was touched before.
Yeah, it was.
And it was just like, and like Section 2 is the main one that's like that keeps everything together, that like make sure everybody vote. But Section 5 has been touched, like that shouldn't have even occurred, period. It don't matter what state you're in, like it's against the Constitution. Like no, like it like there are certain things that just should not even be touched and shouldn't even be up for debate. Like it shouldn't even be allowed to debate it. Like once we make this rule, that's when it comes to human rights, like there shouldn't even be a discussion. Like
why is there a conversation?
Like why is, like, you are a human too. We are all humans. Like why
is there a conversation? Like because people care about their own self-interest more,
which
so
should be human rights because they are human. This is why I mess. Y'all don't know this. I'm a big animal person because I was zookeeper, all this stuff like that. Like this is why I love animals. At the end of the day, a tiger knows it's a tiger. Like it is what it is. Like they feel about all tigers the same way. Like yes, there are certain things, whatever, like that a little bit different. Like he dissed me, whatever. Okay, but they all agree that they are a tiger because when you put another animal in that room, they're all going to treat that same animal the same. It's like because they know that is not a tiger. Like, why can't we as humans?
That's a really good.
All humans.
That's a really good analysis.
If it's like I don't care what your self-interest is. Everybody's self-interest should be that all humans should be like. Do you like being a human? Like with rights. Like
you need to make a commercial
interest. So if we're talking about human rights, everybody should align the same way.
Same way. No facts. But I also think because America, the Middle East, we were just talking about, a lot of countries surround their politics around religion.
Yep,
and obviously that is a tool that's been. And I won't get into the religion conversation because I won't upset you guys. But that's been no, that we have time. That has been a tool used. Now I'm not saying this a negative or positive, but that has been a tool that is used to divide people for so long. Some of the bloodiest wars in our history is because
Hitler,
my God,
sailing witches.
I think my God is better than your God. Box about it. I'm like, no. What? Like at some point in human history, the Roman Catholic Church ran the world.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep.
That you let the Pope, the Roman Catholic Church run. That's crazy. It's ridiculous that we allowed this. But when you mix in religion and politics, which is why we have a separation of church and state.
Right.
I don't necessarily think too highly of the founders of the constitutions. But what I will give them credit for is they understood that these two things should not coexist.
Exactly. Because they can't.
exactly. You cannot be true to both of these things.
Yep.
And one of these things is a fairy tale, but I won't get into it. And it's not politics, but it's ridiculous. But we have to do better. Gotta do better.
For sure. And so just to wrap up, everybody, once again, we're gonna put the links below in the comments so that y'all can see them and stuff like that. But take a look at what's happening in Alabama. It's also happening in Louisiana, Georgia, and Florida. These redistricting things when it comes to voting. Make sure it's not happening in your state. Pay attention to what's happening in state government. And then when it comes to anything politics, things like that, make sure again that this is why these are examples of why it's important to do your own research. Make sure you are looking at the political sites. Make sure you are looking at what their political backing is, what they follow, what they actually are doing in their job, not at home, but in their job.
Facts. Also, guys, make sure you please comment if you have a comment. I'll discuss. I'm sure you don't agree with everything I said here today. So if you got a comment, please leave it.
Yes. Well, thanks for joining us at Jay's Table once again. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.